Hi, I'm Terry Coles, Portugal correspondent for International Living. As part of my job being the Portugal correspondent, I take emails from people like you, readers of International Living, that have questions about living in or visiting Portugal. So today I thought I'd compile a list of 12 of the most commonly asked questions and discuss them all at once in one video. So let's go. One of the common questions I get asked is Portugal a safe place to live? According to the Global Peace Index that rates 190 some countries every year according to safety, Portugal comes in number 4. On that same list, the United States comes in around 121 last time I looked. So if that tells you something, Portugal's a very safe place to live and visit. Now, of course, just like any place in the world, there can be petty crimes and crimes of opportunity, especially during tourist season and in the busier cities, or if you're out late at night. Leave your purse or cell phone in a busy, congested area of Lisbon or Porto, perhaps, and maybe you'll walk away and come back and it will be gone. But you could say that just about anywhere in the world. But in general, this is one of the safest countries in the world to live. In fact, on that same list, the top 10 countries were all in Europe, which makes Europe one of the safest places in the entire world to live. I get asked a lot about the LGBTQ population and communities here. We have several gay and lesbian couple friends who say Portugal is one of the friendliest countries in all of Europe for alternative lifestyles. Same-sex marriage is legal here. They're welcomed with warm arms, and there are gay pride parades throughout the country. There's one in Porto in the north, Lisbon in the center of the country, and there was one scheduled in Portimao recently, but it had to be canceled. But in general, gays, lesbians, any alternative lifestyle, couples or singles will find no problem being accepted here. Is English spoken by every Portuguese person? Of course not. It's just like saying everyone in the US speaks a second language, and of course we don't. Currently, English is spoken in schools here. Is taught in the schools here starting in the 6th grade. But of course, just like any language, if you don't use it or work in an industry that requires that person to speak English, perhaps they've lost some of the skills. Many of the older generation, the over 50 and 60 crowd, don't speak any English. So while in the expat havens like Lisbon, Porto, and the Algarve, there are certainly plenty of people who speak English, don't assume that every Portuguese person does, because it's just not true. So if you're coming to visit Portugal, you will not have a problem not knowing any Portuguese. You can get by knowing only English. But if you're coming here to live long term, it's definitely a good idea to learn a little Portuguese. Not only is it a sign of respect, but it will also help make your daily life easier. What about healthcare? Healthcare is a big consideration, especially for Americans, because we probably have the highest priced healthcare in the world. Healthcare throughout Portugal is excellent. We have options of both the public and the private system. Let me give you a rundown briefly of both. In the public healthcare system, anyone that resides in Portugal, once you become a resident here, you'll have access to the free public healthcare. It's absolutely free to join. There's no cost that come out of your pocket initially. You'll only pay to see a doctor when you need to, or if you're hospitalized. Co-pays can be as little as maybe $6 and go up from there depending on the type of treatment. The problem with the public healthcare sector is you don't have a choice of what doctor you see, so they may or may not speak English. We've used a few public hospitals here and have good care. I had a few x-rays done. My husband was seen for a heart issue. We had good experiences, but not everybody there spoke English. So if you know Portuguese, that's a plus. If you don't, you may prefer to stick to the private system. Now, in the private healthcare system, I can call today and make an appointment to see an English-speaking doctor, often the same day if I need to. With health insurance, our costs are very minimal, maybe $12.50. But even paying out of pocket in the private sector, you can see an English-speaking doctor for around $50 for a general practitioner, maybe $70 for a specialist. But all of the specialists and the GPs I've seen here have been excellent. Doctors throughout the country take their time to treat the whole patient. They're not rushed. They don't see you in 5 minutes, expect to spend some time and get great health care from them. Also, with the public system, there could be wait times to see a specialist or to have a procedure done. But both the public and the private system work in conjunction with each other. Some of the doctors work in both the public and the private sector. So don't think that one is better than the other, because it's not. And as residents here, we have options to both. How easy is it to fit in here? Well, my husband and I lived in Panama and have traveled extensively throughout Latin American countries where we stood out as the gringos. Here, this is Europe. Europeans come in all shapes, sizes, hair colors, and skin colors. There's people here from Asia, Africa, North America, and all the rest of the world. So yes, everyone fits in here. They think we're Portuguese, they think we're one of them until we open our mouth and they realize our Portuguese language skills are not perfect. But don't worry about fitting in, because everyone fits in here. Food and wine. Many people move to Portugal for the great food and wine. Now, my husband and I are not real foodies, and we tend to look for the cheaper options, and we're also vegan vegetarian, so that eliminates some of the options. But we've only been vegetarian for a few years, so prior to that we did enjoy the chicken and the pork and the other Portuguese meats that they sell here. Portugal food throughout the country, because there's so much coastline, fish is very common. There's a type of dried cod here called bacalhau. It's commonly sold everywhere around the holidays, and you'll see it piled high in the grocery stores. From what I understand, the way it's prepared is it has to be soaked and the water has to be emptied out and rinsed out many times. It's served with cream in kind of a casserole. It's served grilled, baked in all different ways. Sardines are also very common here. Up north, you'll see this towering sandwich called the francesinha, which is meats layered upon meats. So yes, Portugal is known for its food, and there are many different cuisines and gastronomic pleasures throughout. You can find just about any type of food here. Indian, Thai, Mexican, Italian, and traditional Portuguese fare too. Portugal wine is wonderful and very inexpensive throughout the country. We bought bottles of wine for €1 or $2 that are very good. That's the same thing that the Portuguese drink. Of course, many parts of Portugal, they grow grapes for wine. Port wine is one of the big producers in the north. It's a fortified wine, very potent, especially if you're not a big drinker like me. But Portuguese wine is wonderful. It's commonly served everywhere. You can easily get a glass of wine in most restaurants here for about $2.50, $3. So certainly doesn't break the bank either. If you're younger and you're coming here with children and you're not retirement age, I've been asked about the school system here. Now, of course, if you come here with children and you want to put them into a public school system, they are going to have to learn Portuguese. Up until the 9th grade, I believe, or 6th grade, they can receive additional language instruction on the side until their Portuguese is up to par. But as you can imagine, children coming into any foreign country learning a language are going to have initially have problems, but I've read on some of the social media boards that children, especially the younger ones, integrate very well into the public systems. Of course, throughout the country, we also have the private schools, which can be pricey. They do require interviews, I understand, to get your child into them. There's also international schools where they're taught on a British level with British English. Now, from what I've been told by my Portuguese friends, even in the public school system here, schools here are typically 2 years ahead of schools in the United States. I'll say that again, schools here are typically 2 years ahead of the United States. I have Portuguese friends here that grew up in the U.S., and they were left back behind and had to repeat grades here, went to the U.S., and suddenly they were straight A students because they were so far ahead of the U.S. school curriculum. So that tells you something about this country too. I get asked about the political situation. Politics here is good, although we really don't follow that much of it. We have both a prime minister and a president here. The prime minister runs the country, and the president is the head of state. The president, they both live in Lisbon. The president is commonly seen out and about in Lisbon, same as with the prime minister. There have been pictures of the years of the president on social media, in the grocery stores, shopping for himself, sitting with school children in the schools. I think last summer he jumped in the ocean and he saved a woman who was near drowning, and he was 71 years old at the time. So compared to U.S. politics, here our politicians are very much among the people, very personable, and out with the public. The infrastructure. Portugal has great infrastructure throughout. We have some of the best highways in all of Europe. They can get pricey because there are tolls on a lot of them, and you can get around them by using side roads, but sometimes it takes longer, and my husband just prefers to pay the tolls because the highways are so easy to navigate. I also get asked a lot about Portuguese drivers being terrible. They are not at all terrible drivers. Sometimes they do drive a little fast and want to tailgate you, but you just pull over and let them go around. But the Portuguese in general are rule followers. Whatever they're told to do, they follow the rules, and they listen to the president and the government and the prime minister. So driving here is very easy. As far as water and electricity, we have drinkable water throughout the country. I've never seen the electricity go off with a power failure. I'm sure it happens, just like it happens anywhere. Power lines in some of the fancier communities, like where we live in the Algarve, are underground, so we don't even see our electric wires out there. So it's really clean, it's efficient, and it's good. We have very reliable internet throughout the country. So that's not an issue either, and you can connect to Wi-Fi just about anywhere. Places like McDonald's, town squares, cafes, all offer it. Churches. I often get asked, are there English-speaking church services here? And yes, there are in certain areas, the larger cities. Here in the Algarve, we do have some. I've also been asked about Jewish communities, and yes, there are Jewish communities in different parts of the country. Portugal is not a gun country, so I don't recommend you bring your guns here. They are available with permits, with police checks, but they're only used here for hunting. So no one has a gun in their house just for safety because it's not needed, and they don't believe in using guns other than occasional hunting trips. So why not Portugal? What's the downside of living in Portugal? First, I'll tell you there is no perfect place to live. We lived in Panama for 5 years. We traveled full-time for 2 years and lived in many other countries. Every country has its good and bad. Some of the pet peeves that some of us expats have here in Portugal is dogs. The Portuguese love their dogs, but they don't tend to bring them inside and make them members of the family. Often they work and they're left in apartments alone or out on balconies to bark all day. So that can be a pet peeve, especially if you're a dog lover like we are. Another pet peeve is the buildings throughout the country are old, and they tend to be colder on the inside than the out. So if you're cold-natured like my husband and I, you'll really notice that. Walk into an old church anywhere in the country and it'll feel like the air conditioning is on. Insulation is not the same as you would have in the U.S. unless you buy a very newer build and request that it be put in. Fortunately, when you go to look for an apartment or a property to buy, every property is supposed to have an energy rating on it, A being the best, and then it goes up to G or higher up in the alphabet. So the lower the number in the alphabet, the better the energy rating on the property will be. It might have solar panels, it might have some insulation, and double glazed windows and doors. So that's another consideration and a pet peeve of mine about Portugal. But there aren't too many things that I have to to say bad about my newly adopted country. We love it here. We're so happy to be here. And if you have any more questions, please feel free to email me at portugal@internationalliving.com. And if you'd like more information on Portugal in general, please click on the link below for your free Portugal report. Thanks for listening.